Outdoorsman of Reddit, what is the most terrifying experience you've encountered in the woods? A few weeks ago, I decided to go for a night hike in the Angeles National Forest, close to where I live. I set off around 8 p.m. to clear my mind after receiving some bad news. The hike started off great, with fog creating an eerie yet calming atmosphere. The fog was so thick that I had to hike without using my flashlight, as the light would only reduce my visibility. As I ventured deeper into the mountains, I began to notice strange smells, like perfume and campfire, which seemed out of place. I also caught a whiff of a plant that brought back childhood memories. The further I went, the darker it got, with the city lights now barely visible. About an hour into the hike, I saw a dull, flashlight-like glow on a ridge above me, which seemed odd since there were no trails in that area. About 10 minutes later, I heard distant whistling, seemingly coming from the mysterious light across the canyon. Curiosity piqued. I continued hiking, but the farther I went, the darker it got, and my footsteps became louder on the sandy, crunchy soil. Eventually, I stopped to take a break and decide whether to keep going or turn back. While checking my phone at a scenic viewpoint, I suddenly heard rapid footsteps in the sandy soil nearby, as if something was running at me on two legs. They stopped abruptly, and I quickly pulled out my flashlight and knife, but all I saw was fog and darkness. Terrified, I decided to head back down the trail. As I made my way back, I frequently stopped to shine my light behind me. At times, I thought I heard extra footsteps, as if something was following me and matching my pace to remain undetected. About half an hour later, I heard a crashing sound in the brush on the steep side of the canyon. I moved to the other side of the trail and continued, ignoring any other strange sounds I heard along the way. That unforgettable night left me feeling uneasy. Even though I tried another night hike on the same trail, I was better prepared, with a headlamp and a larger knife. I also ran back down the trail after reaching my turnaround point, feeling haunted by the memories of that mysterious night in the fog. When I was 15, my friends and I ventured on a camping trip near a secluded lake in a rural Scandinavian country. This 3-4-hour hike led us far away from civilization, but we knew our way around the small town we grew up in. The night was filled with laughter, homemade wine, and poorly grilled hot dogs. Life couldn't get better. Packed tightly in one tent, I woke up at 4 a.m. to the chilling sensation of a hand gliding down my forearm. Assuming it was a friend, I brushed it off until I realized the touch came from outside the tent. Panic surged through me as I mustered the courage to shout, "Whoever you are, you need to leave!" A man's voice, unnervingly calm, replied, "You should pack up your stuff and leave." My friends, now wide awake, stared at me, terror in their eyes. We quickly agreed to leave and asked the stranger to go as well. "Hurry up!" he demanded. Stepping out of the tent, we discovered a massive man had commandeered a small rowboat and was now ominously perched in the middle of the lake, his eyes locked on us. As we hurriedly circled the lake to escape, his unnerving gaze followed our every move. We never dared to return. In the years that followed, we tried to dig up more information on this mysterious man, but no one had ever seen him before or after. There were no houses or cabins nearby, and the lake was too small for fishing. The encounter has haunted us ever since, and our parents warned us never to go back. My dog and I were backpacking 12 miles from the trailhead in a relatively remote area, popular enough to occasionally see other hikers, though we hadn't encountered anyone that day. At around 2 a.m., my dog's low, deep growl woke me up. With my headlamp on, I saw his teeth bared as he protectively stood over me. I could hear heavy footsteps circling the tent. I leashed my dog to prevent him from tearing through the tent and clapped my hands to scare off what I thought might be a black bear or moose. The footsteps continued to circle. Keeping my dog and bear spray close, I stepped out of the tent shouting, "Hey, bear!" The footsteps stopped, but I couldn't see anything with my headlamp. After about 5 minutes, I crawled back into the tent, only for the circling to resume. An hour later, the footsteps finally retreated into the woods. At dawn, I took my dog and bear spray to investigate. We found a trampled path through the leaves but no animal tracks. My dog led me along the path, and we discovered human footprints and, disgustingly, human feces with toilet paper. It turned out that some barefoot stranger had been lurking in the wilderness, circling my tent for over an hour and leaving an unwelcome surprise.
My family and I were excited to explore our 100-acre property, a huge area of wilderness that we loved. Our land was filled with unexplored places, with hiking and ATV trails that we and previous owners had made. We used the land for camping, hiking, and hunting, always finding new spots to set up camp overnight. A few weeks ago, we packed our camping gear and set off to create a new trail. We marked our trails with spray paint on trees. After walking for almost an hour, we noticed that everything around us had become eerily quiet. No birds, no insects, just silence. My husband and I exchanged worried glances, knowing that silence in the woods was rarely a good sign. We continued cautiously, trying not to alarm our daughter, who was still happily chatting away. We reached a stream that marked the halfway point of our property and stopped for a moment. My husband and I shared a tense stare, both feeling that something was off. I finally said I didn't feel well and suggested we head home. Our daughter protested, but we insisted. As we retraced our steps, I spotted a person crouched down in a ghillie suit about 150 feet off our trail. Even though they saw me notice them, they didn't move. I signaled my husband, and we both prepared for anything. We hurried our family back home and called the police to report the trespasser. A few days later, my husband and I set up deer cams around the property. We didn't return to the woods for about a week until we went to check the footage. Out of the 9 cams, 2 captured images of the person in the ghillie suit. We handed the images over to the police to add to our report. Since then, we haven't ventured back into the woods except to check the deer cams. We haven't seen any other trespassers, but it's chilling to think about the times we heard footsteps near our tent at night while camping. We always assumed it was curious animals, but now we're not so sure.
While walking through the pitch-black woods to reach a deer stand, it was so dark that I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. I suddenly heard something large circling around me, trotting along at a steady pace. Initially, I brushed it off, thinking it was just a deer. However, it abruptly stopped and unleashed the most spine-chilling howl I've ever heard, so powerful and loud that it felt like it was resonating within me. In response, a few wolves howled back in the distance, and the creature hurriedly ran off. After that harrowing encounter, I was left feeling shaken and in desperate need of a change of clothes. I have a secret spot about 3 miles deep in the national forest where I hunt, usually spending a weekend there. The area is home to hogs, white-tailed deer, black bears, and panthers, so I'm familiar with the wildlife. Last November, I trekked to my spot, set up my hammock, and prepared to camp for the night. Not long after lying down, I heard the most blood-curdling scream nearby. Although bobcats, foxes, and limpkins can produce similar sounds, this scream felt different and ominous. I grabbed my binoculars and scanned the swamp's edge, catching a glimpse of what appeared to be a woman sprinting away from something about 200 yards out. Considering how far I was from any roads or civilization, her presence and direction were puzzling. I quickly switched to my rifle scope to see if a bear or panther was chasing her, but there was nothing. As the sun set, I tried to brush it off and get some rest, holding my rifle a bit tighter than usual. The next morning, curiosity got the best of me, and I went to check the spot where I thought I saw her running. To my surprise, I found small, barefoot prints in the mud. I hastily packed up and left, not having returned since. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. See you next time.